The internet already hates Rachel Zegler as Snow White, and the movie hasn't even been released yet. Why does everybody hate her? That's what we're going to talk about today. It's been a couple of years now since she was announced as the new Snow White in the live action remake. So I'm going to give you a recap on why Rachel Zegler has amassed so many haters so far. And then I'm going to explain why her behavior is actually a wonderful lesson for women everywhere on femininity, or better yet, on a lack of femininity, and how this particularly relates to the classic character of Snow White. So let's break down how we got here. In 2022, Rachel Zegler was announced as the new Snow White in the Disney live action remake of the 1937, I believe it was 1937, iconic animated classic, right? And Disney has been on a kick lately of doing all these live action remakes. They've done The Lion King, they did Aladdin, they did The Little Mermaid, and now Snow White is coming out soon. The original tale of Snow White is from Brothers Grimm, and I believe it was in the early 1900s early 1900s when it came out. But now we know it as the classic cartoon with the seven dwarves, evil queen, and the prince that comes to save Snow White. Rachel Zegler first rose to fame in another iconic role that was revived by Steven Spielberg in West Side Story as Maria. I thought that, first of all, the movie was really good, and I thought Rachel was phenomenal in that role. I thought she was perfect for it. She is super talented. After I watched her in West Side Story, I looked at a couple of other of her videos where she sang live, and she's just really, really talented. And then after that, she was announced as the new Snow White. And I think before the whole Snow White promo came out, people liked Rachel Zegler. I think she had a lot of fans, but people started to sour on her pretty early. In 2022, when Interview with Entertainment Weekly came out, and she started talking about how she didn't even like the original Snow White. And this kind of kicked off a whole avalanche of interviews and little snippets and clips of Rachel being snide and just being very unlikable. So let's watch the first one and then we can chat about it. Here we go.
Again. Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures. Doesn't sound like something a little kid would like. Was terrified of it. Never revisited Snow White again. So I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years when I was doing this film.
So that was one of the first places that people saw Rachel say that she doesn't even like Snow White. And if you just saw this in and of itself in isolation, you could be like, okay, it's fine. It's not really that unlikable. It's kind of unlikable. She's kind of annoying. She's very exaggerated. She's very musical theater kid. She's just very pronounced in her gestures and her facial expressions, and it can be kind of annoying. But even right away in the comment section here, people were starting to bash her a little bit. And this was from over a year ago. And the first comment is, notice how Gal Gadot talks about how honored she is to play this role and to retell the classic story that she loves. All Rachel wants to talk about is how awful the old one is and how much she hated it. How many flops is it going to take for Disney to realize that they are about to go bankrupt? So there's been a lot of criticism just in the broader context of Disney going woke and ruining classic tales and reviving things that don't need to be revived. Another person says, love it when the villain is more charismatic and likable than the protagonist. And if you do watch the rest of this interview, I'm not going to bother to play it all, but I'll just summarize it and tell you that these comments are pretty spot on. Gal Gadot is gracious and she is likable and she's sweet and she's grateful for the role. But she does talk about how she likes some of the narrative changes they made with the role. However, the way that Rachel talks about the role is like she despises the classic Snow White. It's like there's a very strong dislike. And I think that's what really rubs people the wrong way. And somebody commented and said, I want the evil queen to win this time. Another person said, this is in all caps, Rachel, if you hated Snow White so much, why did you accept the role? I don't get it. All fair questions. So right away in the comment section, people are pointing out that Rachel comes off as very snide. She's not grateful. She hates Snow White. So why would you even accept the role? I mean, other than for fame and money. Here's another interview with Variety where she gives her take on the changes made in the film. And she's also here with Gal Gadot.
a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign. I am.
Ugh. She's just so desperately unlikable. I'm sorry, she is. Somebody commented, so they're taking the love out of a classic love story. Gotcha. Somebody else said, can we agree on the day this movie comes out, we'll all just stay home and watch the original instead? Who's with me? And then somebody said, Zegler, there is nothing wrong with dreaming about true love. And it's funny because, I know somebody else said, now the evil queen don't need to kill Snow White because she's more beautiful than her. And look, this isn't, when people are saying this, it's not really just about looks. They're not saying that Gal Gadot was more beautiful just physically and only physically than Rachel. It's like, your beauty comes from the inside too, right? And I think this is a cliche that we've heard many times, but beauty also comes from the inside. And when you act ugly, you appear less beautiful to people. And it's just, here's another comment here. Not all female protagonists need to be so focused on things like power and leadership. When a woman is valued just on that, it kind of feels like regressing a bit, because women can dream and hope or just be whatever they want. One should be able to dream about finding love or being a powerful businesswoman with the same strength and still have both dreams be just as valuable. And I think it's interesting that people are over it. People are really over this bashing of the female protagonist who wants true love. Like I did talked about in a previous video, I think we're coming out of the girl boss era. I think people are yearning for more classic love stories. There's nothing wrong with a woman who dreams of her true love and even dreams of a prince who rescues her. And it's funny that a lot of people from all political aisles, no matter what your political beliefs are, we're at a point culturally where I think people are really exhausted of the girl boss feminist rewrite. And I think they would prefer to have more of these classic love stories, because it's just not fun to have everything be made into some feminist tale. It's just not fun. It's not enjoyable for everything to have feminism shoved down your throat 24/7. And that's what Rachel is kind of doing in all of these interviews. It's not even so much about what she's saying. I mean, it is what she's saying, but it's even more about how she says it. It's just so in your face. Like, she's forcing this feminist narrative that literally nobody asked for. Here's another interview, one more, where she talks about the prince stalking Snow White. And she's complaining once again that it's an old movie and it's an old tale.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
So no prince, or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story, just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
She said it. She said the quiet part out loud. It's not about a love story anymore. It's not about love. This interview is honestly the most annoying one for me. She's just so over the top and exaggerated and hateful about the original movie. She's hateful about it. Why? Again, just like that person commented on YouTube, why would you agree to be Snow White if you hated her and hated the story so much? It's okay. Like, look, Gal Gadot is a good example. She talks about rewriting some aspects of the movie, making it a little bit more modern. I may not agree with some of what she says, but she does it in a way, and she talks about it in a way that's much more palatable and that's much more sort of honest and authentic. It's not in a way to try to shove this message down your throat. But Rachel Zegler, I feel like after West Side Story, she kind of immediately gained some fame, and her talents were recognized, which must feel good for an artist and a singer who's probably been working very hard for all of her life to be recognized. But you can kind of see the wheels turning. You can kind of see the switch flipped in these interviews. She has let the fame and the fast amount of success really get to her. and she thinks she is the moment. Like she is the girl. She is the it girl. That's sort of how she's acting. That's how she's coming off. And everyone knows that an actual it girl doesn't act like she's an it girl. She just is the moment. And that's why it's just so annoying for me. Here's another one, okay? This is the last one, I promise. She's talking now about, she's demanding to get paid for every single hour that Snow White will be streamed. Why? Because she had to wear a dress.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
She's getting that mad and worked up about wearing a dress. Honey, there are millions of girls who would kill to play Snow White and would kill to wear that dress for 18 hours a day and would gladly do it without making all of these demands and making it sound like they hate Snow White. It just reeks of entitlement. It just reeks of so much unlikability. Is that a word? If it's not a word, Rachel just made that word a thing because she just gives you the ick. And it's funny to see everyone from all sides of the political aisle come together and join arms in how much they can't stand Rachel Zegler. And now this is sort of like, for some people, not all, a sort of final nail in the coffin is recently she was accused of anti-Semitism because she just tweeted "Free Palestine," which to me is not like, out of all the things she's done that's unlikable, that doesn't even make the list for me. So the whole internet has banded together to hate on Rachel Zegler. And of course, there are also like the Snow Brown comments. The one supplement that everybody should be taking, regardless of what stage you are in life, is organ meat. Organ meat capsules like these pack a huge punch for nutrition, electrolytes, minerals. They're so good for cardiovascular health, your lymphatic systems, your cognitive function. Ladies, it's even good for your hormones and your fertility. This bison trifecta here has all three. It's got the liver, the heart, and the kidney, and it comes from grass-fed and grass-finished bison, which is known as one of the most nutrient-dense animals on the planet. And you can use my code GINA10 for 10% off any and all orders. This is a wonderful product. I take this every single day. I've taken it through my pregnancy, taken it through postpartum phases, and it's so good to support a healthy, active lifestyle. It's known as nature's vitamin. So use my code GINA10 for 10% off. You can go to the link in my show notes to get yours today. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to make this whole video is because I wanted to point out from my perspective why Rachel Zegler is so hated in terms of Snow White. And it doesn't have to do with her ethnicity and the Snow Brown thing, because as we know, Disney has become the wokest of the woke, and they're always trying to one up themselves and feed the Marxist monster and play into the lens of oppressor versus oppressed, which has taken over our society and forced everyone to see things through this lens. And so Disney is constantly trying to flip the script and turn this dichotomy upside down by shoving non-white people into traditionally white roles, whether those roles are fictional or historical. And so, you know, when the news broke that she was going to be Snow White, a lot of people were joking. They were like, oh, great. So now she's Snow Brown, because Rachel Zegler is like mixed ethnicity and she's obviously like part Hispanic. And the Snow Brown comments were like kind of funny. You have to admit it's a little bit funny. But my problem with Rachel Zegler doesn't even have to do with her ethnicity. There's also people are saying that she's not beautiful enough to be Snow White because they put the photos of Gal Gadot next to Rachel Zegler. And they're like, since when is the evil queen not as beautiful as Snow White? Because the whole premise is like the queen wants to be as beautiful as Snow White. But when they do this meme, they intentionally pick like a bad photo of Rachel Zegler. And I think Rachel's beautiful. So for me, it's not about her ethnicity and her beauty. My issue with Rachel Zegler is that she's just so unlikable and hateful of Snow White, which is very different than Halle Bailey. I think Halle Bailey's the name, right? The black girl who played the Little Mermaid recently, right? A lot of people were talking about how dumb it is. They picked a black person to play a white, pale mermaid with red hair. Okay, but you know what? I gotta be honest. I didn't even see the remake because Little Mermaid was my favorite Disney cartoon, so I didn't want to ruin it by the live action remake. But I didn't even mind that Halle Bailey was cast as Little Mermaid. Ariel, you know why? Because she was so cute and adorable and grateful for the role. I actually watched quite a few of her interviews because I was curious, and she talked about how much she enjoyed it and how grateful she was to represent a different look for little girls who looked like her. She was sweet, she was fun, she was likable, and it made you care a lot less about the fact that Ariel was white and now she's black with dreadlocks. Like, it just made you care a lot less about it because Halle Bailey was like grateful for the role. She was the right choice. She was not a PR disaster for Disney the way that Rachel Zegler is. And so that's why it's like, it's not for me about hating Rachel Zegler for Snow White. It's got nothing to do with her ethnicity and her beauty. It's got everything to do with the way that she acts and how little she actually knows about Snow White. She clearly didn't do her homework when it comes to the history behind the Snow White film. Let's read a little bit. You may not know this. I recently read some of this on Twitter. There's a person, her name is, I believe, Ariadna Jacob. She posted this really interesting thread about the history of Disney and Snow White. So we can take a look here. She says, here's a story you don't know about why Walt Disney must be rolling over in his grave amidst Rachel Zegler's comments on the very film he and his brother Roy bet everything on. And then I'll scroll down a little bit. What we can do here is we can look at an excerpt that Ariadna shares. And she says, the story and plot in Snow White isn't a mere detail. It's a key part of what made the film a success. Walt used it to captivate audiences, making them invest in the characters and the groundbreaking animation. So dismissing this element isn't just critiquing a character, it's overlooking the innovation and risk-taking, So let's read this here. On both the political traumas of the 1930s and the novelty of the film's technical achievement, Snow White also had more subliminal but no less powerful appeals. The jealousy of the queen towards Snow White's youth and nubile attractiveness provided a sexual subtext. The battle between one generation's fading sexuality and the succeeding generation's sexual awakening, the latter of which is literally rendered when Snow White receives her resurrecting kiss from the prince. Seen this way, Snow White and the dwarfs enact a kind of pubescent ritual of unacknowledged yearnings, a practice round of maturity until the prince arrives to consummate her passion and bring her to adulthood. It's very interesting, right? And of course, this would be considered very offensive by today's modern feminist lens. And then the next excerpt from a book says, Snow White is about assuming one place in the natural order, essentially about growing up, accepting responsibility, as Snow White does for the dwarfs and the dwarfs do for Snow White, and taking over. The story is not only Walt Disney's expression of his own assumption of power, with the dwarfs representing his shorts and the prince representing the larger ambitions of the feature cartoon itself, but an expression of the assumption of power for everyone who has grown up or intends to. And it would become the matrix for all of Disney's great animations, in which a child overcomes the hurdles and treacheries of the adult world and then finds his authority within it. Right? And think about all of the other movies that come after that. The Lion King, The Little Mermaid. It really is about children that assume responsibility and they step into adulthood, they step into maturity, and they do it in a way that's palatable to kids, right? They tell the story and they make it suitable for kids. So there's a lot of intention and a lot of meaning behind this story. And when I look at all of these clips and Rachel Zegler's behavior, it's perfectly indicative of how programmed Gen Z has become to simply hate anything that is old. They hate everything in the past, regardless of whether they understand it, because Rachel Zegler clearly does not understand the meaning behind Snow White. She doesn't know the history of the story. She doesn't know the history of the studio making the movie. And because to Gen Z, to them, anything that's old automatically equals bad and it should be tossed out. They sneer at anything that's remotely traditional, anything that's remotely rooted in nature, anything that's remotely anything that's remotely rooted in family, maturity, the difference between generations, all of these more traditional ideas. They hate it. They hate it when the older generations their traditions are revered and celebrated, even down to the classic love story. That is more of a traditional thing. Why is it such a bad thing to be saved by the prince? Why do so many young feminists hate this idea now? Because they have been programmed to believe that a prince saving you means you have no autonomy, you have no voice, you have no opinion, you have no sense of self. That's what they've been taught. And so I think another important takeaway that Rachel Zegler shows us is that the mystery and beauty of femininity has been lost so much on the younger generation. Because think about Snow White. It's ironic because Snow White is the ultimate feminine icon, not feminist, the ultimate feminine icon. She's kind and innocent. She's pure. She's caring. She's nurturing. She's beautiful. She cares for the dwarves. She cares for animals and nature. And Zegler shows us what a beautiful woman looks like who is devoid of much femininity. And I think it's very ironic because she's beautiful. I believe Rachel Zegler is a beautiful, talented girl, but she's snide, ungrateful, demanding, over the top. She's domineering, she's exaggerated, and she's even aggressive at times, especially that clip where she's demanding, I need to be paid for every single hour that I'm in that dress. She is totally lacking of that natural femininity. And yet she has been chosen, she's been thrust into the role of one of the most classic feminine icons that is Snow White. Rachel Zegler gives us a masterclass on how not to be feminine. Again, this is not saying she's not beautiful. I think Rachel Zegler is gorgeous. I do. But this is not about the way that she looks. It's about her femininity. And she hates Snow White and everything about Snow White and everything about the historical tradition and the story and everything related to the old, just like Gen Z does. But she doesn't realize that Snow White is actually, she captures a lot of the classic femininity that a lot of young women today, I think, yearn for, even if they can't articulate it. Nobody is saying that femininity means that you shut up and you have no opinions. Not saying that at all. But notice how much Rachel Zegler is turning people away, even a lot of millennials and Gen Z, because they're fed up with her. Because no matter how talented and how beautiful you are, you do not attract people as a woman. You don't attract people by being crass and disparaging and contemptuous. Ladies, how would you like to lose 10 pounds or more in 10 weeks? Come join my group coaching program called Fit and Lean, where I help hundreds of women finally get the results they're looking for, even if they've been frustrated with their weight loss process so far. I help you with nutrition, workouts, lifestyle habits. You get a sample meal plan, a recipe book, a workout plan, and of course, a weekly group coaching call with me and constant communication with me online. I help you figure out what to eat, what kind of workouts to do. And if you have been frustrated with the process so far and you're confused about what to do, what to eat, and how to make it all happen, this group is the place for you. This challenge has produced so many amazing results for women for all ages, 20s, 30s, 40s, and even 50s and 60s. So come join us. The link is in the description in the show notes. Just click on it and you'll find more information about this program. It's really a great way to get ready for maybe you have an event coming up or a wedding or a graduation, whatever it might be. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look better and feel better, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight and change your physique a little bit. And that's what this program is all about. We give you tools to get sustainable results. So not only do you get the weight loss in the amount of time that you're in the group, but you also get to keep the weight off, and we teach you how to keep those sustainable results for the rest of the year and for the rest of your life. So come join us. It's a fantastic group, and you're going to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks. You don't change people's minds by having these characteristics as a woman. And I'm sorry to say this, men can get away with that. I'm sorry. I don't play the game of pretending like men and women are not different. We are different. Men can get away with certain things that women can't. And newsflash, women can get away with certain things that men can't. That's just the nature. It's not fair. A lot of things are not fair. Women are given a lot more slack on certain things, just like men are. And we're different. Each gender has its own natural inherent privileges. And if you want to talk about being feminine, which I think is a conversation that a lot of Gen Z is having right now all over TikTok, that's why a lot of the YouTube channels and TikTok content about reclaiming femininity, not feminism, but natural femininity. A lot of women are into that now. And if you want to be naturally feminine and embrace your womanhood, the characteristics of crass and disparaging and contemptuous, just like Rachel Zegler has been in all of these interviews, that's not attractive. That's not what people are attracted to, whether you're another woman as a friend or a man as a potential husband, or even as a fan or as an onlooker. It's not something that we want to see in a woman because it's not inherently feminine. Men can get away with those characteristics and people still like them or even are attracted to them. Sorry, that's one of the unfair things. Again, there's unfair things if you flip the script too. There are some things that women can do that men just can't get away with. But when it comes to women and femininity, being antagonistic and in your face all the time, it doesn't get you very far, regardless of how beautiful you may be, regardless of how pretty your appearance is physically. If Rachel Zegler really felt strongly about telling a different, more modern tale of Snow White, and if she really cared about getting that message across, she could have done it a little bit differently, but she has really turned so many people away. It has been a PR disaster for Disney. And I think it's actually a really nice lesson in femininity for young women. If you want to be beautiful and feminine, like I said, it doesn't mean you have to shut up. Of course, you can have a voice. Of course, you can bring people to your side and you can try to change minds. Women are some of the most persuasive people on the planet. You use your beauty and femininity. Those are the things that are most convincing. But when you are just really combative and unpleasant, you can't really get away with that as much as a man could. I mean, you think a lot about like the grumpy man. Sometimes that's like attractive in a guy. Think about like the most successful comedians. They're very combative and they're like bitter and angry, but it can work for men. It just can't really work for women. And Rachel Zegler proves that because she may be pretty, but she is extremely disliked all over the corners of the internet. And this is coming up again because the Snow White trailer, the full trailer was released. And I think a lot of people are talking about it now. I think a lot of this with Rachel Zegler has to do with age. I think she's really young. And like I said earlier, fame has been sprung on her really quickly. I think her talents just were recognized really quickly all of a sudden. And I think it's hard for some young people to deal with that level of fame. It's such a fast pace. So I give her the benefit of the doubt. I think she's just a little bit young and she's a little caught up in trying so desperately to shove this feminist message down people's throats. Gal Gadot, she's a little bit older. She's been in the industry for longer. She can talk about wanting to change the narrative while still being attractive and gracious about it. So let's see how this plays out. I'm really curious to see whether the box office is going to reflect interest and curiosity into this new live action remake, or whether it's going to reflect a lot of people just being fed up with the girl boss replacing the feminine, classic, traditional protagonist who's interested in love. Nothing's wrong with being interested in love. Love is great. Girls, it's also great to be successful. Yeah, be successful at whatever you do, but there's also nothing wrong with being in love. Rachel, listen up, honey. Nothing wrong with being in love. Nothing wrong with enjoying a classic traditional character like Snow White. There's actually a lot about Snow White that we can learn from. She's not just some passive, weak damsel in distress that needs to be erased from the history of Disney. So let me know what you guys think. Are you excited to see this film? Are you going to be staying at home and watching the original? I haven't watched the original in a long time, so I might do that. But love to hear from you as well. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and share, subscribe to my channel, turn the post notifications on. Please support the show by supporting any of the sponsors so that we can continue doing the show. And we'll see you on the next one. Let me know if there are any topics you want me to talk about next time. Okay, bye.